Hey, has it ever happened to you that you sit down to write an article, a story, or a LinkedIn post, and what you essentially want to do in this is basically just take the user through a simple journey of from A to B, and you want to have a very coherent article, very nicely structured article, which lays down your ideas step by step. But what essentially happens, your story goes all over the place. Well, that happens to me a lot. And in this video, we are going to talk about how to create an article which is coherent, which is promising a single transformation, and is basically not distracted at all, right? Because we don't want the article to go to all over the place. We want the article to give a very coherent message, right? So how do we do this? I mean, how do we actually get this coherence? How do we ensure that when we are writing an article, the progression is linear, the progression is single, and it doesn't go all over the place? Well, the answer is simple. The answer is basically just a one word answer, which is outlining. Outlining is this process where outlining is the process where you basically outline the article, which means that you you figure out what the article is going to be all about. You figure out what all points will you cover. You figure out in what sequence those points will be covered, and so that there are guardrails. What are guardrails? Guardrails are basically to ensure that your article flows within this constraint and doesn't really go out of this constraint. So that's what guardrails do, and outlining basically creates guardrails, right? So let's talk about what our outlining is and what it essentially, I mean, how we can essentially implement it, right? When you decide to write, you need to know how exactly the story is going to flow and in what direction the story is going to flow. Outlining, like I said, brings a structure to our writing, and when this structure is strong, the reader doesn't get confused. If the structure is weak, if there is no outlining, then the reader is basically confused. So outlining brings this structure, right? Because the human mind, we want to jump all over the place when we're writing. We might just if you're talking about, let's say, uh, if I want to write an article about how to write better headlines, and if I start talking about how to write better endings, or if I start talking about how to write short sentences or long sentences within the article, or how to start your article, then I'm going into all different directions but I shouldn't be going there, simply because the whole purpose of this article is to write headlines. And so outlining brings us that structure. But before we actually start outlining, there is one very important thing that we need to figure out, which is known as the core of the article. So what is the core of the article? The core is the one idea or just one transformation that you want to bring about in the reader. That is the core idea. And remember, you cannot have two core ideas, you cannot have three core ideas, you can have only one core idea. Because this core idea will, like I said, create a guardrail. I'm really struggling with this word. But this one idea will ensure that your writing doesn't go outside the constraint that you have chosen. Okay, so like I said, it has to be one core idea. So what is that one core idea? Well, like I said, an example would be how to write beautiful headlines. That's one core idea, because I'm now promising a single transformation. I'm saying that my user is at A and I am going to bring him at B. And the transformation that I am doing is I am helping him or her write headlines. Or take the example of this particular video. The core idea of this particular video is that outlining keeps your writing on track. So I am only talking about outlining in this particular video, outlining how it keeps your article on track and how to use it. That's the only thing that I want to cover. If I start talking about headlines in this particular article or this particular video, sorry, I'm going away from this core idea. So, like I said, first you need to figure out the core idea. Now, this figuring out this core idea can be difficult. It is not always easy, because we want to convey a lot of things at the same time usually. And so what we need to do, and sometimes if we need time to figure out the core, sometimes I write something and then I'm able to figure out the core. But on other days I just know what the core is, and then accordingly I start writing. Both these approaches are absolutely fine. There is nothing quite wrong with it. But just know that if you want to convey two, three, four things, then you convey them through different articles, not through a single article. if you want to convey one thing, that is only when you produce one article, or vice versa, right? To convey one thing, you want to have only one article, right? So this core idea can be difficult to figure out, but eventually we all need to get there, and there is no right or wrong here. You just have to take your best judgment as to what a single transformation, what is the single meaning, what is the single point that you want to convey in this article. Okay, now when the core idea is identified, that is when you can actually start outlining. So when you know that, okay, now you have finalized on this transformation of from of taking the user from A to B. Now you basically can start outlining. Okay, but now, I mean, what is the formula look like? I mean, what is the framework? How do you actually outline? So here is the one that I use typically for creating long form content. So especially when it is a video, or if it is a article, or if it is an email, this is the framework that I use, and I'll just talk about that a little bit. The first thing that I probably use is the setup. Okay. Now, what is the setup? Setup is basically when I start this article with a story. Now, start the video or the article with a story. In this particular instance, although I I immediately got into the article. I didn't quite lay down a setup or a story. But in some cases, if you look at the written version of this video, the article of this video, I have started with a different story. It's a story about meditation. So this could be, just to suck in the reader, just to get the reader hooked onto the article. That's why you start with the story. I'll be linking the link of the article so you can see what I'm talking about. Now, when the setup is complete, when the introductory story is done, you want to slowly get the people into this topic. So you have to talk about this topic. You have to talk about why this topic, why is this topic important and stuff like that. Of course, it's it goes without saying that there needs to be a strong connection between these two. The story that you put in and the topic should have some kind of, it should flow smoothly. It shouldn't be abrupt. Okay, now that you're done with this, remember I told you about the one transformation A to B. Now you get three supporting points to explain this transformation. So point number one, and don't worry, I'll just give you an example in a bit. Point number two and point number three. You get 3 points, but again, all of these points are not away from the main theme, away from the core idea, because that's what we have agreed upon. Okay, and then we go to objections, because you do want to cover objections. Every article or every topic usually has one, two, or three, or many objections. So you want to cover those objections, and then you kind of want to summarize whatever you have talked. So one, two, three, summarize all of them. You summarize. You basically try to conclude the article, but then you use the sandwiching technique. So basically, the loop that you have opened here, the setup in the story that you have created, you need to close that here by using the sandwich technique, right? So just to summarize, you have the setup, you have topic, you have point number one, two, and three. You have objection one, two, then you have summary, and then you have sandwich. So this might just sound a little bit abstract. So I'll tell you how this looks at, like, in terms of this particular article or this particular video. The setup, like I said, I've skipped in the video, but in the article, you'll see that the setup is basically a short meditation story that I have used. Okay. The second point is the topic, right? So in the article or even in the video, I've mentioned why this topic is important. If you don't do outlining, your writing will go all over the place. We don't want that. That's why this topic is important, right? Then my first point was what is outlining. That was the first thing that I covered in this particular article. Then the second point that I covered was identifying the core, and the third point that I'm covering is the outlining. Okay, out and usually I actually missed one step. There could also be an example or two in this particular framework. By the way, I missed saying that, but somewhere in, and this is totally up to you. You can fit in an example after point one, after point two, after point three, or after points one, two, and three. It's all up to you. But you give an example. What I'm doing right now is giving an example of how this outline looks like, right? Okay, so and then now I'll be going to the objections in a bit, and I'll be summarizing the article in a bit. I won't be using the sandwich movement in the video, but you'll get to see it in the article. All right, so I hope this bullet wise framework of outlining, is helpful. Okay, now let me go to my objections, right? Because like I said, those are important. So what about the objections? The first objection that many people might have with this is that how do I choose these one, two, or three points? Remember, I told you about the 3 points. So how do I choose this one, two, and three? How do I make the right choice? Well, there is no right or the wrong choice. You are the director here, so you just get to pick what you want to choose. So pick what you think is going to define the core idea that you have identified in the best possible manner. In this particular case, I felt the need to define what outlining is. I felt the need to touch upon the core idea, which was the point two, and then I felt like giving an actual framework of how that outlining looks like. So those are the 3 points that I chose. But if you're writing the same article, maybe you find some other 3 points which you think are most important for this. But my judgment told me that these 4 points are the most important. So yeah, it's all up to your judgment. All right. The other objection that you might have is that if I follow the same principle again and again, if I follow the same framework again and again of set up story and then points one, two, three objections, blah blah blah, then my article would be boring. Trust me, it doesn't happen. Your article will still continue to be extremely interesting, even if you follow the same framework. And in fact, most of the successful bloggers will follow a same framework or the same set of outlining guardrails. So don't worry about it. Try it out. Your article will never get boring. All right, to summarize, what all did we cover today? Firstly, we covered the fact that if without outlining, your writing can go haywire. We don't want that, and hence outlining is necessary. We then defined what outlining is and how it creates a structure for our writing, how it creates different steps, or how it we are able to create different ideas that we want to put in our article, and our outlining essentially helps us do that. The next thing that we covered is identifying the core, because outlining cannot happen if we don't know what the core of the article is going to be. And then we looked at the structure of the article, which was the story, explore, connect, establishing the need of the topic. Point number one, point number two, point number three, objections, example, sandwich moment, and summary. Right? Yeah. That's pretty much it. What I wanted to cover. This has, I'm not kidding when I say this, this has transformed my writing. Otherwise, I used to go all over the place, and I hope this helps you as well, because it's very natural to go all over the place, but outlining will transform your writing. Try it and let me know. All right. Thanks.